When faced with criticism, the media will say it's their job to hold people accountable. Like that My Pillow guy at the briefing. What a dork.
I think these briefings could be, better designed. The president could come out, say a few words in terms of what his administration is doing, not have these, PR stunts like Mr. Pillow coming out and giving a plug for his company.
It's obviously above my pay grade. I don't make the call that we take them or not, but it seems crazy to me that everyone's still taking them when you got the My Pillow guy getting up there talking about reading the Bible.
Reading the Bible. But it wasn't just TV. Non-essential bozos with blue check marks also took to Twitter to mock Mike Lindell. But while these turds snark away, Lindell was converting his business into making 50,000 masks a day. So yeah, laugh all you want. The object of your ridicule will save lives. Fact is, Lindell is an American success story, but because he mentions the Bible too much, he's worthy of media scorn because they're so much better than him. So as we strive to unite against one of the greatest foes we've ever faced, you gotta ask, does that really help? And does this help?
Do you think there is blood on the president's hands, considering the slow response? Or is that too harsh of a criticism?
I think that's a little too harsh.
Once again, the media frames this pandemic as their divisive playground. For them, the perfect medication is a cheap shot. I wonder, when the Five sounded the alarm on the virus back in January, what was Chuck's concern?
I think that one of the reasons Senate Republicans want to get this over with as quickly as possible is because you want the maximum amount of time between whatever this is and the voters voting. I think, if you look at what happened in the summer of 2016, leaving aside the election itself, Zika virus, Orlando nightclub shooting, there's going to be a lot of news in the next 9 months. And ultimately,
Coronavirus that is clearly this is going to impact China in ways in our economy that we haven't really contemplated.
Concerned about China's economy, not the American people. Now, who has blood on their hands? See, Chuck, the blood on your hands game can be extended indefinitely to everyone. If trying to put the unknown virus in context of other illnesses like the media did, then they have blood on their hands. If you told Americans to go about your business like our New York politicians did, then you have blood on your hands. If you in the media conflated the name of a drug for fish tank cleaner, then you have blood on your hands. At some point, no one has spotless hands, including Chuck, which is why we gotta dump this gotcha BS. It helps no one. My advice, time to wash our hands of the blood on your hands line. Then maybe the press can find a real question, one that seeks an answer instead of attention. All right, Jesse, since you had mentioned this before in the A block, what's your take on the attack on poor Mr. Pillow Man?
The media snobs don't think Mike has the corporate pedigree to be at the Rose Garden. The media snobs hold technology executives in very high regard, but they look down on industrialists, on manufacturers, on the Procter & Gamble's, United Technologies, and jockeys, and really look down on people that use infomercials to sell their product like Mike. What really set them off first was saying, read the Bible. They don't understand Mike is a recovering addict. That's an affirmation for him. Everybody understands that people recovering from addiction do that, and it's important to them. Other thing to understand is whenever a culture is challenged by a war, a pandemic, an economic depression, the culture always digs deeper into their faith. It's happened throughout history every single time. And the fact that the media doesn't have the empathy for that, the business intelligence, the compassion to understand that, really just makes me realize how shallow they are. On Chuck Todd and Nancy, we're at war. You can either be with us or you can be against us. There's some people in this country that are trying to help, and there's some people in this country who are trying to divide. Listen, the president, the Democrats, no one has been perfect. We were slow with the testing, but very quick with the travel ban, and that's been much more critical in saving lives. We can play this game all day about who was positive, who was negative, and when that happened. Nancy Pelosi, just a couple weeks ago, was in downtown San Francisco telling everybody to go to Chinatown, get in a big crowd, go to the restaurants, and shop. She was telling everybody about impeachment while this virus was spreading. Chuck Todd moderated a Democratic presidential debate just a little while ago. You know how many questions he asked about the virus? 0. We can do this all day long. It's not important, but what is important now is everybody needs to get on the same page and help.
I thought you were going to go all day long. Dagan, you know, there's a weird media hypocrisy in which if a religious person does something really bad, if you mention the religion, you're a bigot. But if somebody who's very religious does something good, you can make fun of them mercilessly. So you might be Islamophobic if you talk about terrorism, but you can make fun of Mike Lindell because, you know, he mentions the Bible. And people who read the Bible are just a bunch of idiots, according to the media.
Right, and if you don't make fun of those people who cite scripture, who believe in a higher power as part of their recovery and their life and their effort to give back, if you don't make fun of those people, you're not getting invited to Chuck Todd's cocktail soiree that he's surely going to throw for all his left-wing liberal buddies when all this is over. But that goes to the point, we're a nation that roots for recovery and redemption. We're a nation of people who believe in second chances. So I think all of these people who sit in front of TVs for a living need to go in their boudoir or their man cave and look in the mirror and ask themselves, am I rooting for catastrophe, for death, for dying, for suffering? Because I think it might benefit myself somehow, and I might have more power. Because I think they need a real hard check and a hard look in the mirror and ask themselves at the end of the day, do I just need to shut up?
Yeah. You know, Juan, you are a God-fearing man. You go to Mass every Sunday. I am not. I'm an agnostic. I reflect probably more of the media than you do in that sense. Does it bother you when you see that they kind of look down their noses at somebody for openly talking about God and the Bible?
Well, yeah, I sure would, because they'd be looking down at me.
Yes.
But I didn't take it the way that you did, though. I saw it as people saying that Mike Lindell stood up there and he started making political statements about, like, divine intervention in November of 2016 when Trump won. So he turned it into something of a political rally when it was intended to be a briefing for the American people on the coronavirus. I think President Trump even said, you know, I'm surprised he said that, signaling to me that he didn't set it up. I don't know, but it didn't seem appropriate, I guess, to the president even. My bigger point, though, in regard to, you know, the Chuck Todd thing is I think that you're right, and that was a divisive kind of statement. It wasn't about insider information. Mm-hmm. It was about setting up a fight. Let me hold your jacket while you two go, you know, head to head. I didn't think that was right. Mm-hmm. But I do think that if it's about the question of mobilization right now, you know, America is mobilized for action in dealing with this virus. If that's the right response now, why can't you say, hey, that would have been the right response earlier, would have been the right response a month ago? Mm-hmm. So to me, if that's the direction of the journalist, Chuck Todd, going there, I would say that's informational, that's legitimate. Let's just look at where we are, what we're doing. But setting up a phony fight, and even as you heard former Vice President Biden, he said, hey, I wouldn't say that. That's too harsh. Yeah. That's too far.
I think the problem with that question about questioning how fast one should do something can be applied to every single good thing in life, because every single good thing in life could be started sooner. But that will save that. Dana, I keep hearing a train. Is that in your town? In the background?
Can you hear it?
I can hear the train.
I can hear it.
I was worried you would think it was my stomach.
I know.
Yes, there's a train.
I can recognize that New Jersey train anywhere because I've been there. I know the train.
Yes.
It's your backyard.
Yes. It came by yesterday, too. So I would say 3 things. I remember when I was press secretary, there was one network news reporter, I'm not going to name him, and I remember as the deputy press secretary one time being in the room where they were all watching this on the screens where the president was giving a speech. And at the end of the speech, the president said, may God bless you, may God bless America. And this reporter slammed his hands on the table and said, I can't stand it. I can't take it anymore. All this God talk. And he was like screaming this in the room. And I was just shocked. But then I realized like they would make fun of George W. Bush for being a faithful person all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I would say is asking the question of blood on your hands is a real cliche.
Yeah.
You know what? It's like it's just like it's an easy one. It's sort of like when somebody says, what grade would you give yourself for the coronavirus? Like those questions to me are so lazy.
Yeah.
But also, let's say something nice about Joe Biden, who didn't take the bait and who said, no, I think that's a little too harsh. I mean, that was very statesmanlike, and he should get some credit for that.
You know, the only person you can probably ask, you know, do you have blood on your hands is O.J. Simpson, right? I mean, because it is so. It is
I'd ask.
Not to his face.
Well,
not to his face.
Greg,
not to his face. And if he's holding a knife, run.
Greg, let me ask you.
Yes.
Do you think any of these reporters would ask President Xi that same question?
Probably not. That is a good question.
No.
But I can't read minds. But yeah, I think it's one of those fallback questions that we should just get rid of it. It's only
that
a
and the grading question out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesse, your turn.
Maybe I would ask that question.
The difference is...
But this is Meet the Press. I don't think Chuck has the chops to host that show. But regardless, the White House Corona Task Force about to brief very soon, and we're going to wait for that. And people who don't practice social distancing could end up behind bars. The mayor of Washington, D.C., threatening 90 days in jail for residents who violate her stay-at-home order. Offenders could also be facing a hefty $5,000 fine. The mayor, now backtracking a little bit, says she won't enforce that order with a heavy hand. And take a look at this scene coming out of L.A. A huge line of police officers were forced to break up a birthday party for a 1-year-old because around 40 people attended. No one was arrested in that city's attempt to enforce a stay-at-home order. Juan, these governors or these local officials, they have a lot of power in a time like this. Some are using it smartly, some are using it a little heavy-handedly, but it's all on them. How do you think it's shaking out across the country?
Well, this is my personal experience, Jesse, because I'm in D.C., and so last night when I went for a walk with my wife, I went down by the local recreation center, and there was a guard standing by the tennis courts, by the basketball courts, and the swimming arena there, keeping people out, telling people you can't play tennis, you can't get on the basketball court. A guard. I was like, I've never seen anything like this. But what's good about this is that there's coordination. So you have Ralph Northam, who's the governor in neighboring Virginia. You have Larry Hogan, who's the governor in neighboring Maryland, all issuing stay-at-home orders. Now, the mayor, as you said, in D.C., walked it back a little bit, says we're not trying to put people in jail, but we want to make sure they get the message that right now social distancing is helping us, is helping America to slow the rate of this virus spreading.